All right. So we said conflict in itself is not bad, but how we manage and resolve it is what determines the outcome. Now, in as much as conflict is psychological, it also has social and legal effects. Now, when we talk about crimes, the law define crime. Criminal law, what is a crime? A crime is anything that now behind every heated argument, there lies an emotional perspective, fear, and a need that is unmet. When we look at the causes of conflict, we said their emotional background, there are also needs that are unmet. We should take us back to the example that we give about the other brother and the younger brother. The other brother that was insisting that the younger brother does not respect him well enough. Now, in that situation, the need that is unmet is respect. Now, behind every heated argument, there lies a web of emotion, a perspective that is misunderstood, there's fear, and there are unmet needs. Now, understanding these elements allows peace ambassador to look beyond the surface when resolving disputes. Now, it will help us to help people heal, not just the settlement. So in resolving disputes, we are not just focusing on the settlement, we're also focusing on helping people to heal, because that is how the relationship will be restored. Now, the human mind conflicts. When faced with disagreements, the brain often reacts as though it is under threat. Now, there's a part of the human brain that is called the amygdala. And amygdala, that's the pronunciation. Now, this part of the brain is the center of emotion. It triggers fights, it triggers flights, and it sometimes freezes responses. Now, have you ever been in a situation with someone, let's say you people are not in a good term, and when you just say something without the person even hearing you clearly, the person will just react like as though there is a fight. Now, that part of the brain is what creates that response because of the atmosphere. Now, in resolving disputes, this emotional aspect takes a wide range before the disputes can be resolved and for the relationship to be restored. Now, don't forget that just as our motto says, that peace built on common ground. We want the parties to see the common ground, the similarities where they both connect and build peace from there. Now, the reaction can make rational dialogue difficult. So where that part of the brain is is in a fright or fear state, it will make dialogue to be difficult. The person will not want to hear, the person will not be calm, he will not want to understand what is being said, to trust or even to see the other person's perspective might be difficult. Now, look at I believe we can see my screen. So say conflict stimulus brings about what? Emotional triggers that what? Brings defensive reaction, which will lead to what? Escalation or withdrawal. So when conflict is stimulated, it triggers emotion, then brings about defensive reaction that can either escalate the dispute or lead to what? Withdrawal. Now, peace building begins when the emotional change is interrupted by understanding, empathy, and effective communication. Now, when they say communication is key, that one cannot be overemphasized. Now, let's go to emotional triggers and reaction. Each individual has a unique emotional triggers. Each individuals. Each individuals. For some individuals, is the words. Say, how will you say these words to me? Some individual is the tone, how you said it. Some individual is the gesture that can provoke defensiveness or anger. So some individuals words, some individuals tone, some individuals the gesture. Now, common emotional triggers in dispute. We have the feeling of being disrespected or unheard. Now, in the course of this training, we will see that many people in a dispute resolution, all they want is just the opportunity to be heard. They just want you to hear their side. They want you to understand. They want you to see what they are saying. And that is why in dispute resolution, we don't throw aside a person's feeling or a person's opinion. We actually consider it because they are very essential in maintaining peace and harmony. Now, common emotional triggers in dispute, we have feeling of being disrespected or unheard. We have the loss of control or power, where one individual feels that they have lost the control. We have unfair treatment. We have cultural or religious insensitivity. We also have betrayal or broken promises. So these are key factors to consider when resolving dispute to ensure that when these either of these elements are there, that means that person's emotion might have been triggered. Now, as a mediator or a peace ambassador, we are to recognize these triggers. Like I said at the introduction, emotional intelligence is for the dispute and for the peace ambassador. So, recognizing these triggers for the person, the people that we are resolving the dispute for, also for us as an individual. So, for instance, you want to resolve that alone can trigger an emotional reaction on the side of the peace ambassador or mediator. So, what to avoid is to be emotionally intelligent and not to allow triggers to cause a negative reaction on our side. Now, before engaging in mediation, it is essential that we ask ourselves, what emotion am I bringing into this conversation? So it is a key question to ask that in resolving disputes or even in our personal life, we should just ask, what emotion am I bringing into this dispute? Because no matter how well you want to hide it, the emotions will show. Now, understanding human needs and interests. Now, according to Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for some of us that did a bit of economics, we'll see that there is an hierarchy of human needs. I will share a picture of that on the group, but you can just browse about it. Now, when we look at the hierarchy, we
Sorry, ma, but we cannot hear you again. No, the thing has been fluctuating since it just go and come.
okay, we're back. So we have the psychological needs, we have the safety needs, we have the love or belonging, we have the esteem, and all right. So in this hierarchy, the psychological need is the fundamental. Now, when that has been met, we will move toward the safety and security need. Then it will move to love and belonging. Under love and belonging, we have friendship, friends, intimacy, family, sense of connection, which then will now move to self-esteem. Then we have confidence, achievement, self-respect, and the need to be a unique individual. which will now bring us to the topmost, the peak. We have self-actualization, which is morality, creativity, acceptance, experience, purpose, meaning, and inner potential. So these are the hierarchy of human needs. Now, last week we said that conflicts arise when there's a sense that a person is going to hinder one from achieving one goal. I believe we remember that. Now, conflict is believed to be that there is a threat or an hindrance to you achieving your goal. When conflict threatens any of these fundamental needs, like respect, self-belonging, or safety or emotion, these are the triggers. These are the things that brings about conflict. Now, a peace ambassador must address not only the fact of a dispute, but also the psychological need. Because if you resolve the dispute on the surface, there is a need that is triggering the dispute that must be resolved. Now, seeing an example that was cited here, a worker may argue over salary, but actually, what the worker is seeking is recognition and respect. Many times, just feel, how will the worker communicate that? He might just communicate it as, I feel I want to quit this job, the pay is small. He will not say the boss is not recognizing or respecting him now. But in that regard, what is actually the underlying need is recognition and respect. Now, once the worker is being acknowledged and respected, the dispute often soften. So, in resolving disputes, I, as a peace ambassador, I must be emotionally intelligent and also must be able to pick out the underlying need, the unmet needs, the psychological needs of the parties that I'm resolving disputes with. Now, we're looking at emotional intelligence is a core virtue for peace building. Now, from the words of Daniel Goleman, he said emotional intelligence refers to the ability to recognize, understand, and manage one's emotions, not to influence the emotion of others. Like, you will manage one emotion, which will now help one to what? Influence the emotion of others positively. So it's not to influence it negatively, but to influence, it's not a manipulative one. I'm able to manage my emotion, then it will now help me to help others, influence them positively. Now, there are 5 components of emotional intelligence. 5 components. Number 1, we have self-awareness. Now, what does this imply? It is understanding your emotions and how they affect others. So as a peace ambassador, I must understand my emotion and how such emotions affect others. Number 2, we have self-regulation. Now, what is self-regulation? Self-regulation is staying calm under pressure and avoiding reactive behavior. A peace ambassador must not be found reacting or to be reactive or to have reactive behavior. Number 3, motivation. There's this spirit of optimism that likely will make anything work. Even if things are going south, a peace ambassador in resolving disputes must maintain a positive attitude, maintain optimism and purpose, even intention. So when I'm resolving disputes, I'll focus on resolving the dispute irrespective of the tension, because I'm going to, that will be my motivation. That will be the positive response I bring to the table. Another component of emotional intelligence is empathy. Empathy is to understand other person's feeling and perspective. In as much as we have different perspectives, it is essential that I put myself in the person's shoe, try to understand the other party's perspective. Number five, we have social skill, building rapport and managing relationships effectively. So, as a peace ambassador, as a mediator, I must have these five components. Like I must put them at at the fore of my mind. I must be self-aware, understand how another person' emotion or disposition can trigger my emotion. I must regulate my emotion. I must keep an optimistic mindset in resolving disputes. I must empathize with the parties, putting myself in their shoe. Also build rapport. Now, building rapport doesn't mean I'm going to now form bound with one party. Building rapport must be on the same level with the both parties. Now, high emotional intelligent mediators don't suppress emotions. So we're not saying you should pretend and we don't suppress emotion. Rather, we are to transform them into understanding. Transform the emotion into understanding. Now, how emotional intelligence enhance mediation? How does emotional intelligence enhance mediation? Number one, we have self-awareness. Now, how will it enhance mediation? It will help me to recognize my own biases and triggers. So, as an individual, I must recognize how another person's action would affect my emotion. So in resolving disputes, I would be on the watch so that it will not happen and I will say I didn't know. Now, how will self-regulation be applied in mediation? Say it will help me to remain calm, neutral, and not to be provoked. It will help me to remain calm, neutral, and not be provoked. How would empathy help me? Empathy will help me to listen deeply and reflect emotions accurately. So when I listen, we at the first week when we look at the ability to listen, said the mediator must listen, not to respond, but to empathize with the parties, to know, to put ourselves in their shoes, to know where the dispute is emanating from, so that we'll be able to resolve it effectively. All right. So, what does motivation do? Motivation will help us to be focused on peace, even when the parties are resisting, to help us to focus on peace. So, the focus will be okay, what's the point? Okay, is to what? Maintain peace. So, we'll be able to focus. That will be the motivation. How about the social skill to help us to build trust and rapport with disputants? Many times people will only open up to who they believe they can trust. Now, when we get to the body language of the mediator, we'll see body languages are expected to maintain. I will send this soft copy so we'll see this as we do our personal study. The role of perception in conflict resolution. What is perception? Perception is how people interpret facts. Now, oftentimes, the way you said something might not really mean what a person will hear. So, the meaning a person gave to what was said is the reality the person is dealing with. So, two people can experience the same event, yet they have opposite understanding or opposite perception or perspective about the situation. Now, look at the example given here. A student that the teacher openly scolded. Now, look at it like, okay, Bayo, you are not doing well. This your test result, you had 5/20. The teacher have announced the results, and the aim, if we ask the teacher, is for what? For the student to do better, right? But let's assume that I am Bayo I am in a class. Let me say I'm in SS2. SS2 class is the peak of secondary school, as far as I remember, because you are feeling like, oh, just 1 year, or let's say SS3. You have your crush that people are already, you are trying to shoot your shots. You have people that are calling you genius in the class, and the teacher just come and say that you are not doing. Okay, so what the teacher intended to be correction will bring what? Humiliation to the student, which will bring conflicts. So let's assume such scenario plays out. What is the role of a peace ambassador? Is to clarify. I really apologize for this network. I Okay, let's proceed. So what the teacher said, in as much as it is for correction, it might sound humiliating to the student. Now, in resolving such disputes, how do we go about it? We help the parties to clarify their perceptions through careful questioning. Now, we avoid assumptions. We avoid assumptions. We help each party to see the situation from the other person's perspective. So, what will I do for the student? I will help the student to see that your teacher is not willing to humiliate you. He just wants you to take correction. It's not for the purpose of humiliation. So we help each side to see the situation from the other person's perspective so that there will be peace, there will be reconciliation. Because the student might just be angry for no cause, and the teacher will be like, why are you angry? I was trying to help you. And everybody is right in their own perspective. Because no matter what you want to say, does the word sound humiliating for the students? Yes, it does. How will you just stand me out in a class of 100 people and say I'm not doing well? That's an humiliation. So looking at this quote, conflict is really about truth. It's about the other person's perspective. It's about perspective. How do you see this? How do you see this? Now, the psychology of apology and forgiveness. Apology and forgiveness are powerful emotional tools in reconciliation. Apology and forgiveness. Now, I've been out of a mediation case that the man, one of the parties, just wanted a sorry. And the matter was in court and they were dragging, and the judge was like, okay, you people go and resolve trade here. And during caucusing, the other party confided in the mediator and said, I just want him to apologize. How will he say such derogatory statement to me? I'm old enough to be his father. That was the dispute. Now, apology and forgiveness are powerful emotional tools when resolving disputes. An authentic apology acknowledges harm and restores dignity. Now, forgiveness frees both offender and the victim. Forgiveness frees both offender and the victim from emotional captivity. Now, when an apology is being done, there is elements that it must have. There are elements that it must have. It must acknowledge the harm. It must accept responsibility. It must express remorse and offer to make. How should the apology be? Please, someone should offer to give us an answer. Or I should call anyone randomly. Okay, you want to talk? Miss Peace, please proceed. Tell us, how should the teacher apologize? You said a good apology must have acknowledgement of harm, accept responsibility, expression of remorse, and offer to make amends. So how should the apology be? Mrs. Peace, we're waiting on you.
Okay. I think in a case like this, like you
How should
mentioned,
the apology be? All right, let me
okay,
just give.
is it
Okay,
okay?
please continue. We couldn't hear you earlier, but you can
Is
speak now, Mrs. Peace.
okay. I think in this context between the teacher and the pupil, uh, I think the apology should be in a form of um, stating the reasons or stating the facts, the reasons for the public humiliation, like the student or pupil sees it from his own perspective. I think the teacher should um, first of all give reasons for
Okay.
um,
Okay. So
yeah,
the teacher must acknowledge the public humiliation that the student claims, just as you said.
yes,
That's very correct.
yes,
Thank you for your input. So the teacher should go like, oh, okay, I said the student name was Bayo. Say, Bayo, I'm sorry, this seems like an humiliation to you, even though what I intended was to help you get better. I know that it might have felt like an humiliation, and I'm deeply sorry. I sincerely apologize. How do you think I can make this up to you? Should I give you a public praise in front of the student? So this simple apology has all these elements. Yeah, acknowledges that it was wrong, that the perspective of the students is valid and considered, also express remorse and also promise to make amends. Oh, I will not do that again. I'm sorry. So those are elements of genuine apology. So thank you, Mrs. Pitts. Thank you so much for your
thank
input.
you.
Let's proceed so that we can cover module 4 for today. Now, stress management and self-care for peace ambassadors. Now, in mediating, it's a mediation is an emotional activity. Oh, sorry. It's already 8 o'clock. Please, can I have like 5 more minutes to wrap up this session? Do I have
Yes, please go
our
ahead.
content?
Considering the fact that we didn't start until
So just about 5 minutes to wrap up this aspect. So thank you very much.
thank you.
So mediation is an emotional activity, and mediating can be emotionally draining because you're trying to put yourself in people's shoes, you are trying to understand people's perspective, and you're trying to sustain and build peace. Now, to sustain peace building work, self-care is essential. What are the stress management that one need to do? We have to practice mindfulness and deep breathing before the session. So don't go into a session all tired and not physically well. Now we have to maintain a life work balance, being an effective mediator. Also, we are to avoid taking sides emotionally. This is very key because it's a thin line. Because for every dispute, you have the side you believe might be right. But being emotional intelligent requires me to bring out my emotions and consider the triggers, not to use them negatively, but to use them positively to understand the dispute so as to be able to resolve it effectively. Also, engage in community, spiritual, or reflective practices to renew peace within. Because it is said that you cannot give what you don't have. So, as a peace ambassador, I must have a peace, maintain a peace livelihood, be in peace internally, externally, so as to be able to what? Mediate and give peace. Now, there's an assignment I want us to work on. This 411, we are going to write an essay, 1 page essay, and we'll write how does my own emotional states influence my ability to build peace. Just write an essay, a page, 1 page essay. I believe it should not be more than 250, 300 words. How does my own emotion So, how does my emotional state influence my ability to build peace? So, it's a page, 1 page essay, and we have to submit latest, let's say Saturday this week, so that we can look at it together by the next class next week, Monday. Do you have any question from this today's class? Do you have any question? All right. In the absence of any question, we'll call it a day for today. So I want to thank everyone. Thank you for your patience and understanding. And I trust that by next week, we would have a better network. So let's have a wonderful weekend. And a wonderful week ahead. Thank you so much. Hello, ma. Good evening, ma.
Bye, ma.